Hello and welcome back to FiddleUP. My name is Emerald Ray, and I am going to talk to you about some efficient practicing practices. This is a request from a student that I talk about some ways to practice efficiently. All of us struggle with having enough time to practice, myself included. In fact, that is the number one complaint of professional musicians, is that we don't get enough time to practice because we are writing emails and driving somewhere and yada yada. There's just so much going on in life that it is so easy to not practice. You would not believe. So you are not alone. Some people are just really hardcore with practicing every day for a certain amount of time. Most of us are flaky enough that things just get in the way and it's actually a struggle. So, you really have to horsewhip yourself into doing this sometimes, even if you really love it, even if it's your job. Like, really, it's kind of, you're not alone. You're not alone, just like not at all. So here are some things that I found have helped me, some of the greatest advice I've gotten over the years in terms of how to make your practice time the most efficient, because honestly, I think that is supremely important, like supremely important, to make sure that the time you spend practicing is actual practicing. I have seen people plateau for years and decades because they don't follow these tips. And number 3 in particular, and we'll talk about that a little bit. There's actually some really key things that are really important to add into your life and your schedule. I think probably the most fundamental and most interesting, I think, aspect of it is creating a space. I got this advice from my teacher my fiddle teacher when I was growing up, to always leave my fiddle out. And she was saying, just, it doesn't matter how much space you have, just always leave your fiddle out. Not in a dangerous space, just kind of give it a home, give it a little space that's not in the case, that actually that's the place that it lives. And it could be on a table, it could be on a shelf, it could be hung on the wall. It could just, the fiddle needs to have its home, its space, and it needs to be in a place that you're gonna actually walk by and see it. So I thought that was really interesting, to create a space. And as you can see, in my home, I have an entire room dedicated to this. You're in my studio right now. This is my entire room in my house that is dedicated to this, and everything has a place where it lives. That fiddle lives there. These guitars really live there. This is not like a setup. This is where these things live. And so, and that plant lives there as well. So, and I have my, my other fiddle is right there. Like, everything has a home to be in when it's not in the case. So when I come home from a gig, usually late, I'll drag the fiddle case in and put my pedal board and stuff like that in here. But in the morning, the first thing I will do is take my fiddles out and put them where they need to go. And this is so they're just readily available. If I have a thought, if I have a tune in my head, if something's going on, if I have a spare 15 minutes, if I'm really feeling like, oh yeah, I understand that thing now, I need to go work on that for a few minutes, then it's just out. And so, you don't need to be a professional to have that be important. If you have your fiddle out in a nice, safe place for it to be, you'll walk by it and go, oh, you know what? I think I've got 10 minutes. I can absolutely run through a couple rounds of that tune. So creating a space for your fiddle, you don't have to create a whole shrine to it, but why not? I mean, wouldn't that be kind of cool if you had a little fiddle shrine? But just like a space in your house for, your music stand, your fiddle, a place to sit, just like having a space in your house to do something that you want to do every day. Like, this is the place that I go, and where you can just walk over, sit down, pick up the fiddle, and boom, you're already doing it. Like, it's genius level in my opinion. And I have really worked that into other aspects of my life as well. In my house, like I have certain places that I do certain things, and that is the place where I do that thing, and it really, really works. So the second thing is to create kind of a ritual around your practice session. So all of the things that you want to do, if warming up is really important to you, if having a few minutes to just decompress and get into the zone, if you're, depending on where your practice time is as well. Some people like to practice in the morning, which I highly recommend that actually. It's something that's a good thing to throw into your morning routine, even if you only have 20 minutes or even 10 minutes. Like that's such a good thing to do early in the day because you're fresher. You're going to have more brain cells to dedicate to it. So practicing in the morning before work, before all that stuff is a really great thing to do. But if you only have your lunch hour. One of my students used to take her fiddle to work because she worked at a college, and so she could sneak into the music practice rooms during her lunch break and go practice there in a completely sound enclosed place. And that was where she practiced, and she put a whole hour into that every day, and it was just so great. So just sit there and eat her lunch and practice her fiddle. But if it's at the end of the day, you might need to wind down a little bit. So I would get into the habit of just starting off slow with some slow bows, with some slow tunes, just kind of ease into it. I wouldn't take all of that stress and anxiety of the day and try to get that out by playing a whole bunch of jigs and reels, even though that may be something that you might have had a rough day and you just need to burn off all that energy. That could be, but then also you might have tense muscles and stuff. They're just that kind of frenetic, chaotic energy is actually not what you want to use to play the fiddle. Trust me, I understand that one. I've had the muscle aches to prove it on that one. So creating a ritual, depending on what time of the day, playing a little tiny bit every day is better than sitting down once a week and practicing for an hour. And I think this is kind of common knowledge now that people kind of understand this. If you leave all your practice time to the weekend, you will have like forgotten everything, and it'll be harder to get your brain into it. So having a little space every day that you've carved out into the day, that you just try 10 minutes, and then or even tell yourself that it's only going to be 10 minutes, and then you'll sit down for 10 minutes and you'll wind up being there for 45 minutes. So do whatever you need to do to kind of trick yourself into doing it every day. That the amount of time doesn't matter. That's what I really want to impress, is that it's not so much to do with the amount of time. People kind of get obsessive over, I need to practice for 1 hour a day. And it's kind of like, yeah, but what did you do with that hour? Did you play tunes that you already know? So that's where I'm headed with this next, item number 3 here. You've created a space, you've created a ritual around it, gotten into Zen mode, and we're ready to practice. What are you going to practice? This is like, as I was mentioning before in the beginning of the video, I've seen people plateau for many years because they get into their comfort zone with what they're playing. They are just so comfortable with the music that they already know, and that feels good when they sit down and go, okay, I know this. I feel accomplished. I have accomplished something. Here is the thing that I do. But then if you do that every day, if you keep playing those same old chestnuts all the time, then that's all you know how to do, and you never go anywhere. And for a lot of people, that's actually okay. There's a lot of people where this is their hobby. They just want to enjoy it. They don't want to push themselves. They just want to enjoy playing. And they can only do 10 tunes or whatever, but that's cool with them. just, they're fine where they're at. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you're fine with being, at lower intermediate level, I'm just picking away with this. I'll do a new tune once a month, once a year, whatever. Cool. Great. That's awesome. That's so good. If you can just be comfy there, good for you. But for most people, they want to move up the ladder a little bit. And so the easiest way to do that when you only have a certain amount of time is to make sure you're doing new stuff most of the time that you're practicing. Once you've kind of gotten warmed up, decompressed, gotten into the zone, then you really want to spend the majority of your brain cells during the practice time on doing something new. And you're going to have to push yourself to do this because it's not going to be enjoyable. It's actually going to be frustrating to sit there and work on a tiny bit of something that it's really niggly and that you're just getting through this. And, it can feel a little unsatisfying to go, you know what? Today, I'm going to spend my 20 minutes on getting the third phrase of the A part of that tune that I learned last week. That's all I'm doing today. That's going to be my major accomplishment today, is getting this one bar of music down. And you know what? That is actually the key to success right there, is to target something that you can't do yet. And by the end of your practice session, you can actually do that one little thing. And that one little thing, maybe it will take up the whole time. Probably it won't, but you have solved a problem in that time. You have actually moved yourself forward during that 20 minutes. You haven't just sat there and played all your old favorites. You have actually put 1 or 2 or maybe 3 steps forward during this 20 minutes. And that's huge. And if you do a little bit of that every day, you're going to be making movement forward every single day. And that is so great. Those are the little baby steps that make giant leaps forward. So playing something new every day is really a key to success for sure. That's actually something that Stuart Duncan talked about. And he's a very, very famous bluegrass fiddler who is like one of the most famous fiddle improvisers, just genius level improviser. And he said that was actually how he got to his just unbelievable virtuoso level of improvising, was he forced himself to play stuff that he didn't know how to play every day. And so I have taken that to heart with my fiddle singing stuff, and that is how I've been able to move things forward with my fiddle singing style, is because I am constantly writing stuff that I don't know how to play yet. And which is, cool to be able to do, to be able to think ahead of, oh, it would be really cool if me or somebody else could do this on the fiddle. And then you have to figure out how to do that. So I'm constantly having to fight myself. In fact, I'm constantly writing new things that I can't do yet. But I find that process very exciting. So so for me, it's not, I want to learn a tune that somebody else wrote. It's me, I wrote it. So it's kind of like, it's super, it gets super real then. It's like, well, I can't play what I wrote. How dumb is that? So I have to really crack the whip to be able to do it. So that's number 3. Number 4 is practicing when you're not practicing. And this is something that I try to instill in my students as much as possible, is if you're listening to fiddle music, you are technically practicing. Things are going in there somewhere. You are learning something. You are spending time on fiddle music. If you are have one of the FiddleUP videos going on your computer while you're making dinner or washing the dishes or something like that, and you listen to and watch the whole video and sing along with me, then when you actually sit down to practice, you'll like have most of the tune down already. So you'll have a really good experience of sitting down and learning that tune because you've already done it. There's already been a rep happening. So, or if you're working on a tune that you don't quite have down yet, but you need to work on the singing part, and in terms of the 4 steps of ear training, ear learning, the singing part is so important. It's the most important thing to be able to do. It's like, if you can't sing it, you can't play it. You really can't. So, you can try, but I promise you, it won't feel real. So that singing part is something that you could build into your schedule. You could sing your tunes in the car while you're doing something else. I often practice singing while I'm cleaning my house because of all the fiddle singing there's so much going on with my body. I actually find it's much better to practice singing when I'm surprising my core with other movements. That actually helps me learn how to stabilize my vocal, my breathing muscles and all of that, is if I'm bending over and doing things while I'm singing and working on my airflow and working on getting a song down, getting the lyrics down, remembering the lyrics and all that kind of stuff while I'm doing something else. It feels like such a good simulation of doing fiddle singing. So that's something that I like to do. So I would give yourself a huge A for effort if you're singing, listening to fiddle music, thinking about it. Just thinking, like, run over the tunes in your head. Another funny thing that musicians do in the car is driving in the car, listening to the tune that you got to learn, and doing the fingers on the steering wheel. And pipers do both hands. So there's all kinds of fun ways that you can build the music into your life where you're actually making some baby steps forward while you're not even actively doing it. If it's just part of your life, it's like something that you love. It's a passion more than it is just sort of a hobby that I just do in this thing. If you have a real passion for it and you pay a lot of attention to it, then all that time spent, with your brain focused on it is practice time. So I would include that in. So if you spent, if you were cooking dinner for 45 minutes and you were singing fiddle tunes the entire time, and then you also sat down and practiced for 20 minutes, holy crap, that's amazing. Like, give yourself an A+ for that. That's amazing. That is time well spent. If you're listening to fiddle music with your family over dinner and then everybody gets up and is washing the dishes and dancing around, that's practice time. That's time that you're incorporating the music into your life. So I hope this has all been helpful. I hope this helps you to build things into your life in a way that makes sense for you, creating a space, creating a ritual, learning things, doing something new every day, and giving yourself a pat on the back for all that practicing time. And so I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you in the next video.